how do you recommend approaching and helping when a teenager is unable to regulate emotions and becomes self-injurious, intimidating, or hitting others? It's a very serious question.
So many
Teenage.
layers to this.
Yeah.
Because I don't know anything about their ability or understanding and skills. And I'd say initially, if it's turned into a problem behavior where they're hitting people, you have to go back and look at what we call the function of the behavior and really just see, like, why are they doing this? Because it's a form of communication. You know, it's easier to hit somebody or punch something or throw somebody than it is to find the right word and then produce it in the way that somebody else understands it. So, you know, initially I would just take those severe behaviors. I'd separate it all out. So separate the emotional control from, you know, each of the other types of aggression or whatever it may be. And I would actually look at each case, see when it happens, try to figure out the function, get a BCBA in there and try to figure out the function, because functions change too. So it's always either for attention because they want access to something. So it's like, I'm going to hit you and you'll give me your doll or food or whatever it is. Or it's maybe an escape. If I hit you, you go away. You stop talking to me. And it's amazing how fast that works. Or there's also like some sensory or innately satisfying part of being able to do this. And so like with self-interest behavior, the majority of the kids I've worked with don't like the feeling of hitting their head on the wall. They do it out of frustration. And I've even had really good kids who can throw themselves in a really dramatic way and their shoulder hits the wall, but their head never actually hits. But they know that if they do that, everybody leaves them alone. So that's very much an escape behavior. But then we do have some kids who, when they hit their head on the wall, they like the way it feels. And that has its own, you know, biomedical aspect of that. And, you know, there's all sorts of theories around it. Many of the kids who are self-injurious actually don't have the ability to communicate and can't tell you why they're doing it. There's all sorts of research and theories that, you know, like if you stub your toe on the wall, you get that pain. And the first thing you do is maybe hit your leg, right? And the reason you do that is that reflex is because pain receptors, they get redirected. Mm-hmm. And like you stub your toe, but then you hit your leg, and then the pain receptors aren't all going to your toe. They're coming to wherever you hit your leg.
Interesting.
It somehow like lightens the pain load. So I know like with kids with autism with, you know, it's been like 20 years, they were looking at the idea of when kids headbang or like bite themselves, that there's some kind of pain somewhere else going on. And by doing these other behaviors, it redirects the pain a little bit. So we've had all sorts of kids. We've had kids who have had, you know, like stomach issues for years and years, and until they could talk, they couldn't tell you. And one of the reasons they were hitting themselves is the pain was so bad. Mm-hmm. And but it wasn't a pain. It wasn't, you know, head pain, it was stomach pain or some other part of their body. So that in itself, I always say, like, you need, you know, go see your physician and just do a full workup and see like if anything's going on. But then if you have the emotional control, when families come in with like a teenager who comes in and they're just like, he just blows up. He's either happy or he's having a meltdown. Like, and the kid is completely vocal. You know, they're yelling and screaming and often swearing, you know, at this time. Those kids often have, I always tell those families, you need to give me about 2 years. Because the emotional control is the prefrontal cortex of your brain. And that's the last part of your brain to develop. It's the same place that planning and inhibition and all of those type of skills, understanding what's important, that's the front part of your brain. And that's the part of your brain that, you know, research will tell you it's the CEO of your brain. So you can have a lot of knowledge in your brain, but if you have no control of the knowledge and when to use it, it doesn't really do you that much good. So this is the last part of the brain to develop now. And there's doctors who say it's till the age of 25 for boys. When I first started, they used to say your brain stopped developing at 5, then it was 7, then it was 10, then it was 13, and now we're at 25. And but emotional control, like the first thing, if I have a kid who comes in, the first thing I'm going to work on is teaching them inhibition, just how to stop. I'm not going to teach them what else to do. And there's 2 types of stopping. There's non-vocal and there's vocal. If they're yelling out profanity and I need them to just stop, I'm going to teach them to have some control on when to talk or not. So it'll be something like, I'll start with a word if they can read, and I'll say, say this out loud when I point to you. Say this out loud when I ring a bell. Say this out loud when, you know, whatever the thing happens, so that they don't, because a lot of the kids, you show them a word and they immediately say it if they know what it is, you know, or if they hear a song, they want to sing with it, or they hear, you know, you start a phrase and they want to say the end of it. So initially I'll work on just on inhibition, or if there's something they want to touch, I'll work on non-vocal inhibition. You just stop touching. And so I really start at those really beginning places of executive function skills, because if you are having some emotional issue, you know, if you're going to have a meltdown, it's because something didn't go your way. And maybe language, you can't find it fast enough to do something, or, you know, it just comes out. You have to work on those easier skills first, you know, the ability to just stop yourself. And then once you can stop yourself easy enough, then you're going to go on and try to find the words to get what you need or what you want or what's not going right. And then that was the beginning of learning how to argue, right? Because if you can have the words, then arguing is a powerful tool, because that's what typical teenagers are doing. They're constantly arguing with their parents, right? And the New York Times had an article about how to fight with your teen during COVID. You know, it's a powerful tool. But if language doesn't come naturally and they can't find the words, and just stopping is a hard thing, you start at a lot more basic level, and it takes time. I always tell families, you need to give me time, because I'm going to really start at a level where they're like, what are you doing? I would say, I'm just teaching them how to stop.
You know, and I want to remind us all that we were all teenagers at one point, and it was hard for all of us. And many of us were not on the spectrum, and none of us were going through COVID. And I just want to remind all of us that we need to make sure. I love that movie, the Disney movie, is it In and Out, where they show all the
Inside Out.
Inside Out, that's what it is. And what was particularly poignant to me watching it was this idea that for our kiddos, that joy has to move to a backseat position as they move into teenage years. And I guess I never really thought of it that way, but I want to rail against that. I have a teenager right now, and I know that, you know, part of my full-time job as a parent right now, I always think about Dr. Grampuchet saying it has to be fair. And right now, very little is fair. Yes. And I'm constantly trying to find enough things to make his life reinforcing as it is right now. So, you know, I hope that this parent will find some professional support to help them in their endeavors to help this young person. But I think that somewhere along the line, I just want to put it in your back pocket that we got to find the way to what is reinforcing for this individual. Because the teenage years are hard no matter what, and it's just extra now.
And you have to give them some control.
Yes.
And for parents, sometimes it's harder for the parents, right? For the teen to give control. But you have to really work out, like, what is fair for him? What can he control of, where you're not going to have an issue, even if it's not how you would do it your way. If that's the way his room looks right now, it's how his room looks.
There you go.
Hey, thanks for watching Autism Live. To subscribe, click here. And if you'd like to check out some more of our videos, click here.